Good morning. Man, look around a little bit. It's good this morning, isn't it? Oh, y'all ready? Good. I like this. We're glad to have you here this morning. I'm excited to have the opportunity to teach again. Last week, I taught about Jesus. This week, I'm going to do the same thing. Y'all all right with that? All right. If you don't remember this, our key verse kind of to getting going last week was Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, which says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? Which means what? He doesn't change. Thank you, Ann. I like it. He doesn't change. That means the fact that Jesus doesn't change means that there are certain certainties that we can live with as believers, as Christians in this very uncertain world, right? Good. Last week and this week, when I knew I was going to have a kind of a two-parter that I could do, I realized that what I wanted to do was I wanted to share two certainties that I felt like would help every one of us take full advantage of who Jesus is. Okay? That's what I wanted. This is what I'm saying. These two certainties about Jesus, to me, are some of the most important for you to get. They just are. And so if you weren't here last week, I really need to kind of do a little bit of a recap because I think it's important because these two stories, the story I told last week and the story I'm going to tell this morning, tie together beautifully. Okay? So I'm going to catch you up. Raise your hand if you were here last week. Raise your hand if you weren't. Where were y'all guys, man? What's wrong with y'all? Sorry, I couldn't help it. Mark chapter 10 is the story from last week, and that's where we discovered that there were some parents and they were bringing their children to be dedicated or to be prayed for and blessed by Jesus, right? And if you didn't get to hear this, when they got there, they were turned away by who? The disciples, exactly right. The disciples basically rebuked them and said, hey guys, listen, we don't have time for this. You can't bother Jesus right now. And we spent a great deal of time talking about why that could have been the case. Perhaps the disciples felt like the kids weren't that important, or they felt like the needs weren't that important, or they felt like the kids were just going to be a hassle and a mess and everything else. But for whatever reason, they said, hey, we can't bother Jesus with this. Now, once Jesus heard what was happening, what did he do? He got mad. He lit them up. That's what I said. He did. Y'all can think what you want about Jesus. He lit these guys up. Okay? He said, what are y'all doing? Do not get in the kids' way. These kids need to come to me. I want to talk to them. I want to bless them. So we discovered the first certainty that I wanted to share with you about Jesus, and that was that Jesus is still what? No, that was the last one. Jesus is still available. Oh, yeah, there we go. It's all right. Jesus is still available. You know what that means? Anyone, anywhere, anytime, Jesus wants to hear from you. He wants to sit down and talk to you. He wants to hear what you have to say. He wants to heed your request. Jesus is still available. And we talked about you might not feel important enough. You might not think what you need is important enough. You might think your life is just too big of a mess for Jesus. But the truth of the matter is, those are all lies. Jesus is still available. So you should go to Him. You remember this? Go to Him. All right. You got it? Say, I got it. Good. The next story, guys, is found in three of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Okay? Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I love this story. It's one of my favorite stories. And if for you note takers, it's in Matthew 9, Mark 10 again, and Luke chapter 18. But when I got to doing my studying and I got to really look at these stories, I realized that what I was going to have to do is I was going to need to just tell the story. You guys know I like to go verse by verse because I love to point stuff out in the verses. Well, this morning I'm actually going to tell the story because like with any story that there's multiple accounts of, people focus on different facts, right? And as I read all of the accounts, I noticed that there were some different focuses. And it's kind of like when Andy and Ren come downstairs to tell me about the fuss upstairs, you know? And they're explaining it to me, and I go to Andy, I say, Andy, what happened? And she said, well, Ren punched me in the face. And I go, okay, all right, well, I need to talk to Ren. Ren, what, you punched your sister in the face, and Ren was like, well, she shoved me. And I go, oh, okay, well, hang on. And I go over here and I say, all right, so you punched the face, you shoved. And I go, Andy, you left out a part of the story. She said that you shoved her. And she says, yeah, well, she was getting a cup and dipping water out of the toilet. And you say, okay. They're just focused on different details, right? Right, Scott? They're just focused on different details, and that's exactly the case here, and it's really not in a negative way. There's just different pieces of it. So because of that this morning, I'm going to tell you the story. Is that okay? All right. So I'm going to go. Here we go. It is believed that this incident occurred just outside of the city of Jericho when Jesus was leaving the city. So he had been there for some time. He had been healing people. He had been performing many miraculous signs. Just all sorts of incredible stuff's been happening. And he's on his way out of the city. Okay, you got it? There's people with him. There's a huge crowd. There's the disciples. I mean, it's a big, and he's headed out of the city gates. Now, one of the things that you need to know is, typically speaking, just outside of the city gates, for multiple reasons, that is where people in need, homeless, beggars, that's where they would kind of stay, catching the people going in and out of the city, okay? And they would beg those people, ask for help. And it's a great place. Jericho was a bustling metropolis, so this was a great place to be in order to get some small acts of kindness thrown your way, right? And so as Jesus is heading out of the city, there are two blind men sitting there. And these two blind men hear that Jesus is coming. Now, I don't know how. Maybe they heard the crowd. Maybe it's always busy right there, I'm sure. But the crowd got bigger, and maybe there were cheers or whatever, or maybe people were shouting or, get out of the way, here comes. I don't know. Or maybe they just heard somebody whisper, hey, there's that Jesus of Nazareth guy. But for whatever reason, they knew Jesus is close, right? Jesus is nearby. Now, I need you guys to put yourself in this place right here, okay? I need you to imagine you're blind. Huge crowd of people. Busy area. It's already a busy area, right? Huge crowd of people. You hear that Jesus is by. And you want to get his attention. Let's do this. I don't want you to imagine it. Would you like to create this scenario? Let's do this. Ernie, close your eyes. All right, you cannot open them. Okay? If you do, you're a cheater. And if he does, slap him. Okay? All right, Ernie. You can't get him. Okay? You can't jump up and run. You can't see where you're going. You can't see. You don't know where he is. Now, crowd, I need you to help me. I need y'all to create a murmur. Can y'all do that? Create a murmur. Just start talking. There's something you've been wanting to say to your wife. Where are we going to eat? Go ahead. Just do it. Let's get loud. Okay? All right. Curtis is nearby, Ernie. I need you to get Curtis. What are you going to? Y'all keep going. Don't give up. Get Curtis. Ernie, get Curtis. Keep going. There's no way Curtis is going to get. Y'all get louder. It's too loud. Ernie, come on now. Curtis. Come on, Ernie. You got better than that. Ernie, come on.
We need Jesus.
That's good, Ernie. Thank you. Just keep your eyes closed, man. You go to sleep. I want to tell you something. I need you to be there, okay? They can't get up and run. They have no idea where he is in this mess of noise. What's their only option? Call out, right? They got to shout, right? I want you to look at what it says they said. They said, Son of David, have mercy on us. Now, immediately, guys, this ought to catch you by surprise, because what did they not say? Jesus? You would think they would call name. I told you to yell for Curtis, and you didn't say, hey, handsome guy! You're welcome, Curtis. They said, Son of David. Now, I got to break this down for you, because there's a lot of implications when they say Son of David. So you have to understand that it had been taught for centuries that when the Messiah came, that he would be a descendant from the line of guess who? David. So when they say, Son of David, do you know what they're saying? They're saying, Messiah. We believe that you are the Messiah. That's a big deal. You can't skip over it. These guys hadn't been following Jesus. They obviously couldn't see him, but apparently they had heard enough for them to make an accurate assumption about who he was. I believe you're the Messiah. It means so much, guys, and I knew I was going to get choked up when I got to this part right here. It meant a lot to them as a people, as a culture, right? For them to say that this is Jesus, but I want to tell you something, it meant just as much for them to say it personally. Because if they knew about the Messiah and they had been taught this and they had heard those same lessons that all the Jews had heard at that time, do you know what they knew about the Messiah? You know what it says about the Messiah in Isaiah 35, verse 5? It says, and when he comes, he will open the eyes of the blind and unplug the ears of the deaf. That's what it says. You think they're thinking about that when they call him the Messiah? You think they got that in their mind now? Isaiah 29, you know, it says the same thing. It says that when he comes, the blind are going to see again. That's what it says. In Psalm 146:8, you know what I guarantee you they knew this. I guarantee you they knew this. You know what it said? The Lord opens the eyes of the blind. The Lord lifts those who are weighed down. The Lord loves the godly. I tell you, I believe with all of my heart, in the forefront of their mind, as they began shouting who they believed him to be, they're thinking to themselves, this is our chance. You see what they asked for? Have mercy on us. You know what they're saying? It's more. They're implying more. We know who you are, and we do not deserve this. We don't deserve it. When I looked up the words, it says that the words that they spoke with, they signify nervousness, apprehension, anxiety about what they're doing. They're nervous about shouting out. And Jake and I were talking about that in my office this week. And Jake stood up and he went on this long rant about this, like why these guys were nervous, what they were feeling, their desperation as they yelled this, and he went on this long rant about it. And I thought, man, what I'm going to do Sunday is I'm going to say, Jessica, turn the camera to Jake, and I'm going to toss him a microphone and say, do that same rant. But then I realized that I would sound smarter if I did it. And so that's what's going to happen here. Thank you. Man, these guys, think about this, man. Put yourselves here. They recognize who Jesus is. And they're shouting out in the middle of a crowd who he is as blind men, right? See, we've been too desensitized. What Jake was talking about this week is we've been too desensitized to Jesus. We just don't have gasp moments about Jesus anymore. I mean, we see him in, he's actors depict him. He's in, smiling pictures. He's in artwork and he's drawn up in cartoons and everything else. I mean, Jesus is in all these sorts of things that we see from childhood to now. We just are desensitized to who Jesus is. And so I really want to make sure that I get you there this morning. So I need you to think. Are you say, I'm willing to think, Tim? Imagine being these guys. And all you've heard about your whole life is that the Messiah is coming, right? And you know that that's been said for generations and generations, that the Messiah is coming one of these days. He's going to save the people of Israel. The Messiah is coming one of these days. And all of a sudden you start hearing about this guy Jesus, and it starts to dawn on you that that's probably who this is. And he's come. The Messiah that you've been hearing about has come in your lifetime. See it? In your lifetime. He's traveled to your city. He's walking down your street. He's within earshot. He is within earshot. The one with all the power and all the authority and everything that you've heard that he's going to do, including opening the eyes of the blind. And he is close enough to do just that. What are you feeling? It says that they shout, Son of David, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. You're not going to believe what happened next. They were rebuked. The crowd that was with Jesus, I'm sure included some disciples, told the guys to hush. Now, does that sound familiar? Yet again, a bunch of people with Jesus getting in the way of other people trying to get to Jesus. They say, be quiet, be quiet. But you're going to love what the two blind men did. Anybody want to guess? They got louder, Ernie, like you did when I kept poking you. They got louder. They refused to be quiet. They weren't going to let this moment get by them, right? They weren't going to let Jesus head on down the road. And they just got louder and louder and louder until, guess what? Jesus heard them. Jesus heard them and he said, bring them to me. And in Matthew 9, chapter 9, verse 28, this is what it says. And Jesus asked them, he says, do you think I can make you see? He gets them in front of him and says, do you think I can make you see? Know what he's saying? You think I can do what you want? Do you think I have the power to do what you're wanting? Do you think that I have the authority to do what it is you're asking me? Do you think I am able? Do you think I'm able? Now you say, Jesus, man, he knows what these guys, they're already calling him the Messiah. They're asking him to have mercy. Tim, you just said all that stuff. So obviously Jesus has to know that they do. I think he did. I just think he wanted to hear them say it. And I think he wanted everybody else that was standing around there to hear them say it. Read with me. Their reply was, yes, Lord. They told him, we do. Yeah, we do. And that was all he needed. A little faith, a little confidence, a little hope, a little trust. That's what he wanted. Verse 29, he said, then he touched their eyes and said, because of your faith, it will happen. Then their eyes were opened and they could see. Pretty cool story, isn't it? These two blind men got their sight. So did you catch the certainty? Did you catch the still? Jesus is still. I'm going to stop right there at the story. Jesus is still. Say, Tim, I'd like to know. Unless you don't want to. If you don't want to. Jesus is still able. Jesus is still able. When these men finally got their moment in front of Jesus, they got in front of him with belief and faith and hope in who he is. Right? In who he is. Their belief was in who Jesus is. Their faith was in who Jesus is, and they knew him to be able. They believed that he had all the power. They believed that he had all of the authority. So when they got in front of him, they asked him for something that would seem impossible, something that seemed completely ridiculous. And he asked them, he said, do you think I am able? And they said, yes, we do. With certainty, to use that word again. If Jesus is the same yesterday, today and forever, then something that we all need to know is that He is still able. He is still very capable. He is still up to whatever it is you need. When I got to this part this week, you guys know one thing when I am preparing a message and I know God's speaking to me, He's speaking to me first, right? It's important to me that I take it and I look at myself and I examine myself deeply, And so when I got to this point, I started thinking, I said, man, Tim, do you believe He's able? I said, yes, I do. So I was praying and I said, Jesus, I believe You're able. I believe You're able to do anything. I believe that You can do anything that You want to do. Anything that I ask You, I believe that You're capable of doing that. I believe that. And I felt God speak to me. And He said, investigate your prayer life and see if that's true. He said, look at your prayers that you pray and tell me if that's true. I'm going to tell you something. When I started looking at my prayers, you know what I realized? For some reason, I must not think He's able. When I looked at my prayers, you know what I saw? I hedged my prayers. See, I got a lot of life experience, right? I know a lot of stuff. Donna doesn't probably agree with that, but I do. I could tell by your eyes when I said that. I've seen some things. I've seen how, this relationship situation normally plays out. I see how this health situation, this medical thing, I see how that plays out a lot of times. And when I examined my prayers, what I saw is that I pray some very safe things. I pray that, the next step would happen. I pray for peace. I pray for the doctor's hands. I pray for a lot of things. But when I looked at my prayer life, I tell you what I didn't see. I didn't see a lot of crazy prayers. What I saw was I recognized that apparently in the deepest, darkest depths of me, even if you were to ask me, you said, Tim, do you think Jesus is able? I would say yes, but I would pray no. Does that make sense? Am I alone in that? Guys, when I look at my prayers, and I think probably when you look at yours, what you're going to recognize is that we don't pray like we're praying to the Son of David, let alone the Son of God. The bottom line is He is able. He has all the power. He has all the authority to do whatever it is we ask for. And of course, I'm going to say this. We should enter into every prayer knowing and recognizing that we want God's will to be done and have a willingness to accept whatever that may be, right? But that should never keep us from asking Him for the grandest thing, right? It should never keep us from praying for unreal mercy, for extraordinary acts of intercession, for supernatural successes, for remarkable recoveries, for unforgettable moments. This should never keep us from praying that. I know we would all say that He is able, but I feel like we don't pray like He is. So what do? Don't hold back. I want you guys to do something this week. I want you to investigate your prayer life. I want you to take a good hard look at your prayers and what you pray. And I want you to identify all of the areas in which you hedge because you know so much. Or you're just being safe. Or normally things work out this way. And I want you to not hold back. The next time you pray for that, I want you to pray all the way. I want you to pray word for word, specifically every detail of what you would love to see Jesus do. Does that make sense? I want you to pray everything that's in your heart that you would like to see Jesus do, as clearly and as confidently as you possibly can. Thursday, the sermon was done on Thursday. It was typed up in my book bag. And Thursday morning I was getting the girls up. I was kind of in a hurry, and I had to do some farming. And I have a cash business there where I do farming, and I get cash for corn. It's a long story, but basically I have a very specific method for it. I take the cash, I put it in a mason jar, and I put it in my house. And when that mason jar gets full, I take it to the bank, okay? In the mason jar, the ladies down there at the bank get a big kick out of it. I throw it, dump it out on the table, and they count it all out. It's weird. It's just the way I am. And Thursday, I'm like, oh, I need to take that. The jar's full. I need to take it to the bank. Please don't rob me, okay? And so I take this jar of money, and I'm getting the girls. I got bags, and I got Letty in the carrier, and I got everything, and I'm trying to get them all in the car, and I set the mason jar up on the bed of the truck and get them in, and I go to Dad's, and I get them dropped off and everything, dropping them off at my dad's, and I get back in the truck, and I start backing up, and I do like this, and I realize when I see the bed of my truck that there used to be a mason jar there, and that apparently I never got that jar and put it in the truck. So I'm like, I'm everywhere in the truck and frantic, and I call Brittany in a panic, and I said, this is going to sound so stupid, you're going to think I'm so stupid, but listen, this is what you got to know. I need you to get in your car. I need you to take these roads like you're coming to Dad's. I need you to look for a mason jar about this big, full of cash, probably busted on the highway. Meet me, right? So I start driving. We meet in the road. She's going, and I go. So I get home, and she comes back. We see nothing. Go back and forth, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. And it was quite a bit of road, and I said, and I'm mad at myself. And you guys probably don't know this about me. When I'm mad at myself, I punish. I'm hard on myself, and this is like, you are the biggest dummy. I'm saying a lot of things that I wouldn't repeat on Sunday morning about myself. And anyway, and so I go, well, I'm walking. Now it was Thursday morning, you remember? So it's raining and cold. I don't care. I didn't even go put no more clothes on. I had just a jacket and a pair of pants on, and I just start walking. I'm walking the ditch. It's probably in a ditch, And I start walking. It doesn't take long. I call, and I'm like, I better be safe than sorry. I call a couple places. And I'm like, hey, I call Sheriff's Department. I lost a large sum of money. They're like, they were. It was encouraged. They were encouraging, and I was like, okay. And I said, so I just start walking. I walked over 3 miles and something in the ditches because I'm not walking on the road. I can see the road. I'm looking in the ditches. And by the way, people are y'all just trash the roads up. Y'all need to stop that. And so anyway, and as I start walking though, I go, you know what? I said, this sermon comes to my mind. I'm not kidding. I start thinking about the sermon. And the first words out of my mouth is, Jesus, I know you're able. I'm just going to say it. And now I'm going to pray it. I know that you're able to do this. And I know that my mind tells me that a large jar full of cash with no name in it or anything is probably gone forever. But I know that you're able. And I also want to point out that it would make a great illustration on Sunday morning if you were to do this. Here's what I want. I want one of two things to happen, Jesus. This is what I'm not kidding. This is what I said as I'm walking. I go, I want to walk up on this jar full of cash, laying in the ditch, and be completely fine, or I want you to put it in the hands of the kindest human being to ever walk the face of the earth, and I want them to turn it in so that I can get it. That's what I want. And at like 3.5 miles, my phone buzzes. And I get my phone and answer it. And it's Oconee County Sheriff's Department. And apparently that jar had fell off the back of my truck and had busted in the middle of the road. And 2 families stopped and gathered all the money up, and one of them took it to the Sheriff's Department. So, everybody's like, yay, Tim's got money. Okay. Maybe Jesus just did this so that we would all know that I am a big dummy. And so that you would know that He is able. Whatever it is, you pray it. I'd like for everybody to bow your heads, if you will. Grayson, I want to ask you, you come up, play. I didn't plan on doing this, but we're going to do this. There's somebody here this morning and you've got something that you know you need to pray. You've hedged long enough. And I believe with all of my heart that you would say that He is able. You would say it. But when you look at your prayers, you don't pray like He is. I need you to know something this morning. He's got all the power and all the authority to answer your prayer completely. He can do it. So we're going to do this a little bit different. We hadn't done this yet, so I get to be the first one to do it, I guess. If you've got something that you need to pray, I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to turn around right there in your seat and you put your head on that chair, to bow your head at your chair, and to pray right there. If you want to come up to the altar, I want you to do that. Just toss your mask on if you have it and come up to this altar. But I'm going to tell you, you can pray right there in your seat. But I think you need to make the move. I think you need to make the move if you can. Turn around right there at your seat or come up to this altar and you pray. There's something you've been needing to pray about and I want you to do it. I want you to have that opportunity this morning. You ask Him, Son of David, Son of God, this is what I need. I'm going to give you a minute right here. You just pray your heart to Him. Jesus, we believe that you are able. Last week we learned that we could come to you anytime, anywhere. We could bring it to you. That the smallest need is important to you. That the smallest thing on our heart is important to you. But I know I got a room full of people right here and they got some big stuff on their mind. They got some big stuff in their world. They got all kinds of burdens that are on their heart right now. I pray this. Hear them. Hear their prayer. And know that we are praying with the absolute belief that you are able, you can, and you will. God, we're willing to accept whatever it is that you do as what is best for us, but we know that you're able. And I believe that that knowledge, that belief, is what unlocks you. Unlocks your power. So I pray that you hear their prayers. I pray that you answer their prayers. And I pray that what happens is we get to celebrate a lot of God moving in this church. It's in Jesus' name. And everybody says, amen. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being here this morning. Y'all pray. Pray like He's able. I love you. I hope you have a great week. Look forward to seeing you. Have a great start to 2021. Bye-bye.